Today, I'm going to be reading a journal entry that I wrote on September 23rd at 6:38 a.m. I was reflecting on my desire to be married and trying to figure out where it came from and how I arrived at this conclusion that I was going to marry a man, even though I had been in a long-term relationship with my partner, a lesbian relationship. And so while I didn't know what direction I was going to take while I was journaling, I realized this is a story that I would like to share with you. And so I'm going to read it, and it's going to sound like I'm reading, but I hope that you hear my heart, and I hope that it inspires you and gives you hope, and it just helps you understand who you're listening to. I prayed a long time to be blessed with a husband. Especially for the last 3 years, I've wanted to get married because it represented the end of so many things and the beginning of much more. Having a husband would mean so many things to me. It'd mean I'd finally have someone to go home to and wake up with every day. I'd have someone to help me load groceries and to put them away. It'd mean I could lie around with someone all morning on the weekends until we discovered something else to do. Having a husband also meant that I would be loved by a man for the first time in my life. From the moment I arrived on the planet to this very day, I've never experienced the love of a man. All the men that I've known in my life were either absent, abusive, toxic, or just temporary. I'd never known the love and affection of a man. No man has ever affirmed me. It seemed that most men disapproved of me, and even the many men that I've dated and that I've known in the biblical sense, there seemed to be a subtle understanding that they never intended to stay. As a result of my challenging relationships with men, I'd grown to regard them as others. They seemed to have a purpose for existing, but since I had never seen any of them maximize their potential or even tap into it for that matter, I'd written them off as people I couldn't count on. I'd learned not to count on any men. From the father I may have spoken to a handful of times in my life to the last man that I longed for thirstily who ended up getting married on me, I learned that men couldn't be counted on. I couldn't count on them to love me, to respect me, to protect me, to cherish me. I couldn't count on them to work and take care of themselves. I couldn't count on them to take care of their children, the ones that they had kept siring for whatever reason. I couldn't count on them to stay when they had sex with me, to apologize and change when they had hurt me, to regard my soul and spirit, to think I was beautiful inside and out. I couldn't even count on them to love God. I had been in so many fistfights with men. I've been arrested because of many men. I've been left to raise a child. I've been lied to, stolen from, cheated on, gaslighted, manipulated, and ignored. They've blocked me, mocked me, and left me cold. And yet still I want to be married one day. My desire to be married was birthed about 3 years ago. My long-term partner and I had been vacillating about marrying each other. Well, I vacillated, she waited. And I loved her so much, so deeply even, but my fear of God, the one who has the power to destroy both soul and body in hell, that's Matthew 10:28. That fear kept me from settling into our relationship the way I wanted to. So we broke up. It was a painful experience, and yet I knew I had to move on with my life. God was not going to approve, affirm, or bless my lesbian partnership, and I was going to remain afraid and live without peace if I stayed. So I left. That's when I got serious about owning my faith. I started studying the Bible. I prayed multiple times every day. I fasted several days in a row. I praised and worshiped. I did all the things that Christians are supposed to do. And then I wondered, why am I doing this? I'm worshiping someone who ruined my life. I felt like a fool because I was still in love with my partner, but I was trying to worship my love away, and instead I felt confused and extremely sad. Why was I so committed to worshiping someone who clearly couldn't have cared less about what I was going through? And why wasn't he responding to my good behavior? I left my lesbian relationship so that I could do things God's way. When I left her, I realized that I really wanted to get married, and I started to resent God because he took love away from me. He knew my history with men. He knew that no man had ever loved me, and I believe that no man ever would. So while I wrestled with the idea of returning to my partner, someone who had loved me and was committed to sharing her life with me, and trying to figure out how a man could ever love me, I started searching for answers on YouTube. I wanted to know if hell was inevitable for gay people, and I needed someone to explain how I was able to be gay and Christian. And then I ran into stories about ex-lesbians, and I was intrigued. I wanted to know what the heck an ex-lesbian was and why they felt the need to share their story. And that's when I found Jackie Hill Perry's testimony. Jackie shared her story about being a gay girl who was touched by a good God, although she didn't say so explicitly until she published her book, Gay Girl, Good God. And while so much of her story sounded like every other so-called ex-lesbian story, there were a couple things that set her apart. The first was her love for God, and second, she married a man. Now, with all due respect, Jackie was what we call a quote-unquote real lesbian. She was the type of person people imagine when they think of lesbians, and to let her tell it, that's who she was. She embraced her masculine energy, if you will. And then she got married to a man, a real man. Not an ex-gay man, a transgender man, but a him, he, cisgender, heterosexual male. And they seemed to love each other very much. Anyway, I watched a whole series, if you will, of her journey to the marriage altar. I remember lying in my bed watching her on TV when Preston proposed to her, and I wept. I was curled in the fetal position on my bed weeping because I was confident that no man would ever love me enough to embrace me fully as I am. I felt that no man could know my past and desire me, and I certainly doubted that a man would ever want to marry me. I also wept because I wanted to share that romantic moment at the altar before God and our witnesses with my partner, but God wouldn't be there, and it hurt me deeply to imagine a marriage without his presence. So my weeping was saturated with yearnings I couldn't articulate, pain that was fighting to remain in my body, and pain that was striving to leave. Then the series continued, and I saw Jackie on her wedding day. My heart melted. She was beautiful. And even though she seemed awkward in some ways, it was evident that she was now embracing her feminine energy. More than that, she was embracing love. The love that God is, and the love that God has for her, and the love that God was going to demonstrate through her future husband, Preston. So when she walked down the aisle, I fell apart. Now I had snot running down my nose. My eyes were almost swollen shut, my stomach hurt, and my body kept me in a fetal position as if to prevent my soul from leaving my body. I wept. I wept for hours until I finally cried out to God, asking who would love me. Who would love me like Preston loves Jackie? And it wasn't until the next morning, after waking from a coma-like sleep, that I realized the issue isn't who will love me like Preston loves Jackie. Instead, I needed to realize that God loves Jackie, and that God loves Preston, and that because God loves Jackie and Preston, they are able to love each other and glorify God together in their kingdom marriage. From there, I realized that I didn't love God. I had been afraid of him, remember? But when he helped me understand why Jackie and Preston worked, I began to understand that I needed to embrace the love of the Father so that I had the capacity to love like Jackie and Preston love each other. Then I got intentional about cultivating an intimate relationship with God. In that process, he revealed to me the issues of my heart. He chastened me, corrected me, educated and encouraged me. He comforted me and empowered me. He taught me how to love him. Better yet, he helped me recognize that I do love him. And as my love for God intensified and he unveiled more and more of his love for me, my heart softened and opened to the reality that I could love a man well and that a man could love me well in return. I learned to forgive all the men in my life who hurt me and disappointed me. And then God renewed my desire to be married so that it is rooted in an unadulterated faith in God, a desire to love my husband because God loves me, and confidence that my husband will be able to love me like Christ loves the church because he loves Jesus. I posted a prayer on Instagram last week saying, "Let me be found in the heart of God when my future husband locates me, so that I know even though I am the desire of his heart, he is a man after your heart." And I believe that is exactly how my love story will unfold, right in the heart of God. And because I'm safe in the heart of God, I feel confident that God is going to bless me with an extraordinarily godly man who will love me dearly and passionately for life. He won't be the first man I've been with, but he will be my last. And I'm now grateful to say that he will be the first and the last man to love me, and that he is worth a wait.